I didn't hold the baby. I didn't kiss my wife on the forehead. I didn't shed a single tear, while the entire room overflowed with joy. I stood there, hands in my pockets, eyes cold as ice, and dropped a line heavy enough to crush every smile in the room. We'll fill it out after the DNA test results come back. Every eye turned toward me like I had just thrown a grenade into the most sacred day of someone's life. And that was only the beginning. I stood a few steps away from the hospital bed, hands still in my pockets. And there she was, Amanda, my wife, cradling the newborn in her arms like it was the most sacred thing she'd ever held. Her cheeks were pale from exhaustion, but they glowed with happiness. I didn't move closer. I didn't touch the baby. Beside Amanda stood my mother, Evelyn, and her mother, Carol. They both beamed, eyes glistening with tears as the universe had just handed them a miracle. I stayed frozen. I could feel my mother's gaze examining me. Not a word was spoken, but she was watching, closely, tense. Then the door swung open. A nurse walked in, holding a clipboard. "Mr. Walker, I need you to fill out the birth certificate," she said. I turned toward her, my voice calm but clear. "We'll fill it out after the DNA test results come in." The air turned to ice. Amanda's head snapped up. Too fast. The baby stirred on her chest, as if sensing the storm about to hit. She looked at me like I'd just stabbed her in the heart. "What the hell are you talking about? Jason?" Her voice trembled. Her eyes were dazed. Carol gasped, clutching her chest like she'd just been ambushed. My mother tightened her fists, silent but razor-sharp. I spoke slowly, clearly. No need to shout. "I'm certain you cheated on me, and I need to know if this child is actually mine." "You've lost your mind," Amanda hissed, her breathing growing shallow and fast. "How could you humiliate me like this? Right now, you're messing with a new mother's mental health." Carol stepped forward, her voice pleading. "Jason, not now. Amanda just gave birth. She could fall into postpartum depression if you keep this up." Evelyn wasn't as gentle. "Jason Walker," she snapped, "you can't treat your wife like this. I didn't raise you to be cruel or heartless." I let them talk, let the accusations blow past me like wind. Then I raised my hand, signaling silence. "Amanda," I said, locking eyes with her. "Should I call Marshall Jones?" Her face froze. That name was like a slap across the whole room. She stammered, "No, I'm not involved with him." I nodded slightly and pulled a folded piece of paper from my pocket. "Then why?" I unfolded it in front of her. "Did you message him this?" I read it out loud, word for word. "My husband can never find out about us. I don't want anything from you." The room went silent. It was so quiet that the heart monitor thumped like a hammer in our chests. Amanda broke apart. Her eyes widened, lips trembling. "How did you get that?" I didn't blink. "Marshall sent it to me. A screenshot." She shook all over, hugging the baby so tightly it looked like she was trying to turn it into a shield. Her voice cracked, sobbing. "He promised he'd never tell." I tilted my head. "So you did sleep with him?" She let out a broken cry, head shaking wildly. "No, no, it's not like that." My mom spoke up. "Jason, it's not clear yet. The baby could still be yours." Carol jumped in, too. "How do you know for sure? Maybe you misunderstood." I sighed. My hands balled into fists, then relaxed. I kept calm. 4 months ago, I found out Amanda was cheating. I looked straight into the eyes of both older women. I didn't do anything. Not for her, but for the baby in her belly. I didn't want to mess with her mind during the pregnancy. But now the child is born. And it's time the truth comes out. I paused. If this is my child, I'll take full responsibility. But if it's not, I'll walk away from its life." No one said a word. I turned to Amanda, her face swollen from crying. "And as for you," I said, "we're done. I'll take care of the divorce." I didn't go home that night. After leaving the hospital, I drove aimlessly, with no destination in mind. I rolled down the window, letting the wind slap against my face to stay awake. But my mind kept replaying the image of Amanda holding that baby, her eyes looking at me like I was the cruelest man in the world. I couldn't understand why it is always so easy for liars to cry. 3 days later, I met with Joanna Hines, a family lawyer recommended by a friend. Her office was cold, but her words cut like a blade. "Do you have proof of the affair?" "I do." I placed on the table the screenshots of text messages, the email she sent to Marshall, and the confession that shattered the hospital room that day. Joanna stared at me for a moment, then asked, "Are you sure you want to file under adultery?" "No reconciliation." I let her give birth in peace. Now, I need peace for myself. That night, Amanda texted me 17 times. I didn't open a single one. The next morning, she called over and over. Her mother, Carol, called too. And then, my mom. "Jason," she said, her voice still soft but heavy, "I understand you're angry, but maybe this isn't the right time." I cut her off. "You want me to wait until she's healthy enough to keep lying? But the baby. Mom, if that baby is mine, I'll do what I have to. But I'm not a sympathy machine. I'm the one who got betrayed." She said nothing. Maybe you're hearing this and thinking, "Jason, aren't you being too harsh? Is this really worth tearing the whole family apart?" I used to wonder that, too. But let me ask you something. Have you ever looked in the mirror and not recognized the person staring back? When you live with someone who lies to you every single day, you'll understand. If you've ever gone through something like this or simply don't buy into cheap apologies, subscribe to Revenge Insight. We don't just tell stories. We bring back memories you thought you'd forgotten. 4 days later, the DNA test results arrived at Joanna's office. I wasn't nervous. I had nothing left to lose. When Joanna slid the paper toward me, I already knew what I was going to read, but I read it anyway. Every word. Probability of paternity, 0%. No anger, no shock, just a confirmation of the gut feeling I'd been carrying for months. That same afternoon, I went to Carol's house. I didn't knock for long. Amanda opened the door. She was wearing a wrinkled t-shirt, her face pale like she hadn't slept in days. "You're here." I didn't answer. I just asked, "Where's your mom?" She hesitated, then stepped back. "In the kitchen." I walked in. My mom was there too. Not surprising. She and Carol had been best friends for 30 years. I figured she wanted to witness this moment. I pulled a white envelope from my pocket, handed it to Carol. "Please, read it out loud." She took it, slowly opened it, and read line by line. Her voice cracked. "Jason Walker, probability of paternity, 0%. My mother sank into a chair, said nothing. Amanda broke down. It was not the sobbing kind of cry. This was a collapse, the kind of crying that happens when you realize the game is over. She lunged forward, grabbing my hand. "Jason, I'm sorry. You know I still love you. I didn't mean to. I stepped back, not angry, just tired. Maybe you didn't mean to, but you meant to keep lying. Day after day." She choked through her tears. "Can't you forgive me? For the sake of the baby." I looked her straight in the eye. "He's not my baby." I turned to my mother, who was still staring at the floor like she was trying to find an escape hatch from this moment. "I won't be claiming the child, not because he did anything wrong. but because if you still love me, Mom, don't turn me into some symbol of misplaced forgiveness. She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw something in her eyes, admiration, or maybe it was just acceptance. I turned and walked out of that house. The last time I walked into that place, I thought I had a family. This time, I walked out with nothing but myself and the truth. I had never been to court before, but that morning, as I stepped into the divorce courtroom, I didn't feel afraid. I just wanted it over with. Amanda sat across from me, wearing a simple beige dress, her face carefully made up, though it couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. She looked at me. I looked back. Neither of us looked away. Next to me was Joanna, my attorney, who was sharp and unyielding. Across from her sat Amanda's lawyer, a younger man who seemed soft. No match for Joanna. The judge was an older woman with sharp eyes and lips pressed tight, like someone who had heard too many lies and too much nonsense in her life. Today was probably no different. The hearing began. Amanda was allowed to speak first. Her voice trembled slightly, but her tone had clearly been rehearsed. Your Honor, I don't deny that I made mistakes. I let my emotions take over, but I never intended to leave my husband. I just felt lonely. Jason traveled constantly. I felt like a single mother, even before I gave birth. I watched her speak like I was watching a play whose lines I already knew by heart. She bowed her head and took a deep breath. I cut off contact with the other man as soon as I found out I was pregnant. I wasn't sure whose child it was, but I chose to believe in my husband. I still love Jason. I want to make things right. The judge jotted something down. Her face revealed nothing. Joanna stood up. Her posture was firm. Her tone was steady. Your Honor, my client has lived in deceit for nearly a year. Amanda didn't just have an affair. She got pregnant by another man and deliberately concealed it. We have evidence, text messages, emails, screenshots, and most notably, a DNA test result. Joanna held up the folder. A court officer took it and handed it to the judge. She turned to Amanda. You said you ended things with your lover after you found out you were pregnant. Amanda nodded. Then why did you continue texting Marshall Jones throughout the pregnancy? We have phone logs, call records, and a conversation where you said, I know you're scared, but Jason will never find out. Silence. You also wrote, you don't have to do anything. I'll let Jason raise the baby if it's yours. I saw Amanda's hands clench, her nails digging into her palms. Joanna stepped closer, slowly, gently, peeling back the last layers of Amanda's story. You said it was loneliness, but loneliness is not a reason to betray someone, especially when your husband posts photos of your dinners together, celebrates your birthday, or writes public thank you messages for having you in his life. Those aren't the actions of a man who abandoned you. I didn't take my eyes off Amanda. Her shoulders drooped. You say you still love my client. But if Jason is such a terrible husband, why are you trying so hard to hold on to him? Why not be with the man you claimed understood you better? Amanda let out a sob. Why? Amanda. Joanna's voice no longer sounded like a lawyer's. It sounded like reason itself. Amanda broke down and blurted out, because Jason is a good man. He's the best husband I've ever had. I know I ruined everything, but I can't bear the thought of losing him. Joanna nodded like she'd been waiting for that answer all along. Then she returned to her seat. No need to say another word. The judge looked around the room. The court acknowledges that the defendant has admitted to adultery and to having a child with another man. The DNA test confirms that the plaintiff is not the biological father. The court also recognizes that the plaintiff has no legal or moral obligation to continue this marriage. Her voice was calm, but every word was a final nail in a part of life that was already gone. The divorce is granted. Assets will be divided as per the initial proposal. Custody of the child is awarded to the biological mother. The gavel came down 3 times, sharp and final. Amanda stood frozen, like she couldn't believe it was real. I walked out first, didn't look back. Part of me expected her to run after me, call my name, beg, promise to change. But she didn't. She didn't call, and I didn't need to hear anything else. I thought that when the judge struck the gavel and declared the divorce final, a sense of freedom would rush in like the first breeze of a new season. But it didn't. There was no applause, no overture for a new life, just silence, a long one, and an emptiness that felt almost unbearable. I didn't hate Amanda. Honestly, I wished I could, because hate would have been so much easier to live with than this quiet disappointment that left no room for anger. I moved a few weeks later. The new apartment was smaller, but that was fine. I didn't need much space, just enough to sleep, work, and not think about the chair where she used to sit and read every night. I started over with the simplest things: hand-brewed coffee, morning runs, and old playlists I hadn't listened to in years. I was learning to live without leaning on anyone. Then my mother called. Her voice was hushed, like she was trying to hide something behind plain words. "Jason, I'm at Carol's house. Amanda, she's gone." I went numb. Not because I still loved her, but because I wasn't ready for the strange feeling that came when someone who once betrayed you is no longer in this world. The police said it was an accident. She slipped near the water and was pulled under by a crocodile. I didn't ask for more details. I didn't go to see her one last time. The only thing I could think of was, what about Tim? A week later, I went to Carol's house. She looked noticeably older. Sunken eyes, wrinkled skin, voice hoarse like she'd cried 100 times. The boy sat in the middle of the living room, hugging a teddy bear, looking at me cautiously. "You're Miss Linda's son, right?" I nodded and sat down beside him. "So, what are you to me now?" I didn't have an answer ready. I looked into his eyes and saw the innocence the adult world had already stolen from him far too early. Then I said, without hesitation, "I'm the guy who'll walk you to school, who'll be there when you fall off your bike, who'll listen when you talk about that kid in class who bothers you." He didn't ask anything else, just nodded. I adopted Tim, not to prove anything, just because if I could stop one kid from feeling abandoned, I should, even if I didn't bring him into this world. My mom supported everything. No questions, no pressure. For the first time, I felt she understood me without needing to speak it out loud. One afternoon, I stopped by her place to help reorganize her old bookshelf. While sorting through folders, I found a worn leather notebook. Out slipped an old photo. My mom and Carol were in uniform. Stern expressions, sharp eyes like women who had been through too much to be afraid of anything anymore. On the back, it read, "Langley, 1999, George Bush Center for Intelligence." I turned and looked at my mom. She shrugged. "I didn't tell you because some things, telling them doesn't really help anyone." I laughed. For the first time in everything, I laughed out loud. "So you worked at the CIA? Just logistics. Logistics. And you still read my emotions like an interrogator. Well, I'm your mom." We sat quietly after that. No more words. But I knew, from that moment on, I wasn't alone anymore. Half a year later, I met Kelly, a veteran, widowed, no kids. and didn't care what I'd been through. She didn't ask about Amanda, didn't probe about Tim, just asked, "Do you like being quiet with someone?" I said yes, and that's how we began, slow, gentle, but real. A year later, we got married. My mom smiled through the entire ceremony. Carol, though frail, still made it, and Tim, in his tiny suit, stood beside me like he'd been a part of my life forever. 2 months later, my mom passed away. No illness, no pain. She just went to sleep. Carol followed not long after. I lost the two women who had taught me that strength doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from not letting others control you with your past. Tonight, as I sit writing this, Tim is sketching something at the kitchen table. Kelly is reading on the couch. No crying, no anger, just stillness. And I know that after everything, I didn't survive. I came back to life. What about you? Have you ever gotten back up after something broke you? Ever forgiven not someone else but yourself? If you have, I want to hear your story. Share it in the comments. If you feel something in this, subscribe to Revenge Insight or send this video to someone who needs to hear it most. We're not here to heal the world, but at the very least, we don't have to face it alone.